What do you think? That is going to look just fantastic. Welcome, Maz here. Hope you're having a splendid day. Today we will do a modification on the interior side of things, and as you can see, we have an aluminium tachometer gauge cluster that will be installed. It is in orange. It is not a fully match to the exterior parts of the car with regards to the paint, but I still think it will be a really nice addition to the interior of the car. And also, since before we have the racing Stratos in Alcantara with a custom orange color, and also we have an Alcantara steering wheel which still has not been installed, but we will see when we'll do that. Once that is installed, I think the interior of the car will feel more complete. I really don't like the thin steering wheel, so the custom steering wheel which we have over there will take care of that, hopefully. So today's video will be an installation video of the orange gauge cluster, which I got from IL Motorsport. I know that Craven Speed do have a similar one, and also they have in red, etc. But when I did order this, it was they were not in stock. I got this in December 2020, so it's about goddamn time to get this installed and get it in the car so we can use it before we actually need to store the car for winter. So that is that. But before we continue the video, if you do like the content of the channel where I upload similar things to this, so we have car detailing stuff and also other type of modifications to the MX5 and so on, do remember then to subscribe. If you did like today's video, give it a big thumbs up. But with that said, let's get on with the installation. So what we essentially want to do is switch out the dial, but in order for us to get to that dial, we need to remove certain trim pieces, and also the gauge cluster itself needs to have some work done before we can switch the dials out. And as you can see, we have a bunch of plastic trim pieces, and these are usually only held in place with clips, and as this is the first time I'm removing these, it might be a little bit difficult to get the clips out because they might be a little bit stubborn. And we need to loosen this trim piece first, or we need to remove this or loosen it up a little bit, because this and this part here are held together by a clip, and I believe there's a male side of the clip is on this center console piece, and the female side is on the air vent side. And we will start from one side going over to the other side. I will start from the left side going to the right side, and once we have removed the trim pieces and so on, we will have access to the gauge cluster itself, and that is being held in place by 4 clips, I believe, and 2 Phillips screws. And once we have removed that, we can do the actual dial switch, and then we will reverse everything with regards to the assembly then. It is recommended to use a plastic trim removal tool similar to this. There are angled ones, flat ones, etc. So we will be starting to remove this part before we start from the left side, and I'll just jiggle this down and hopefully we can release the clips which is holding this piece together. We don't need to fully remove it, we just need to loosen it up a little bit. That should be sufficient for now. And then we will start from the left side going over to the right side. Now we'll see if we can jiggle the clips out on the left side, and in order to get some more access we can lower the steering wheel. I don't know how much that helps, but maybe something. And then as you can see, this trim piece goes around here, goes back here and up here, so we'll see if we can grab hold of something here on this side while trying to remove this. One side is already loose. Was this even sitting in place? I don't know. Like that. So we have the left side loose. Need to be a little bit careful so we don't damage any of the colored trim pieces here. But the left side is loose. Now we will move on to the middle of this center piece, and then we will move our way to the right side. left piece is out. I think most part of the center piece is also out, but I think we need to jiggle a little bit there as well. There, I think everything is loose with regards to the center piece. Now we have this piece around the air vent and this piece holding them together. So there's one clip going in as such, and we'll see how we can access that. I can see if we can access it through here, or if we can just push somewhere and try to release it. I think they're like that. And here you can see where we have a microphone, and I think there will be a cable then connecting to that. So we need to be a little bit careful there so we don't damage the electronics. I'm not sure if you can see this, but the cable is held in place right here. And on the bottom side of the connector, there is a push release mechanism. So we need to push that in and then remove the connector. So I'll need to push from the underside of the connector, and then we will release the cable. So the cable was tucked in, so it is a little bit longer than I thought, so we can pull it out and also have some more maneuverability with regards to this trim piece and see how we can disconnect the cable here. I have some difficulties removing it, to be honest. There we have it, finally. So we'll set the trim piece aside carefully and we'll continue with the rest. What we need to do now is to remove this front portion of the gauge cluster, so meaning the front side here, and that is held in place with two Phillips screws, one here and one on the other side. And then we also have, I hope I can get this to focus, so we have 1, 2, 3, and there's a fourth one here somewhere there, which we need to release in order to be able to remove the front cover of the gauge cluster, and then we can access the actual dial. So I'll start with the two Phillips screws, and we'll try not to lose these somewhere in the dash. That will be very problematic. And now we have the 4 tabs which we need to release in order to be able to remove the front cover of the cluster then. And for that I'll use one of my plastic prying tools, and hopefully we can get to that from here, or we need an angled one maybe. So I'm pushing downwards and pulling the cluster towards the steering wheel. Right, so now we have this loose, and we need to be a little bit careful for the trip reset knob here. Gently take this out, and now we have access to the actual dial. And what you can do is once you have this off, you can see if you have any dust, etc., you can remove that while you're at it. So the next step is to remove the tach dial then. The last step before we start installing the new dial is to remove the old one. This is not glued or anything, and as you can see, we have 2 guiding pins, these 2 white ones, one on the left side and one on the right side, and we have a matching one, the matching holes then on the dial that we got, and also we have some guiding pins on the top as well, just to have this centered. So I'll just remove this ever so slightly and gently, and we want to be careful so we don't damage the needle. So we need to, you see how loose it is? We need to work our way out of this like that. And what I will be doing now is not gram strategy, because this is really light compared to the aluminium piece that we'll be installing, but that's the way it is. What we need to do now is to reverse more or less all the steps that we did, and we will then start with the dial itself and put it gently in here. Oh, that. It's sitting a little bit tighter than the OEM one. The holes are a little bit smaller, I think, on the right side. I had to push it in or force it in a little bit. Hopefully this is now in place. And now we start installing everything in reverse order. What I didn't mention when I was removing the cover for the gauge cluster is that it has 4 guiding pins, we can call it, on the bottom end, and we have 4 holes in the gauge cluster itself, so we need to realign those when we are inserting this back in. And before we do that, we need to align the knob for the trip reset before we do anything like that. And we will then start from the bottom end here, put this in place, and then we will clip the clips in that goes on the top. So everything is in now. Now the 4 clips are in place, and then we have the 2 Phillips screws for the gauge cluster face here then. Before I continue with the centerpiece installation, I just wanted to show you where the clips and so on go on that piece, so you know what to look for. So we have 1 slot here, we have 1 there, we have 1 there, and then we have these clips on top here, and then we have 1 slot here and there, and 1 there. So we need to get all of this aligned properly so that nothing rattles, etc. So what we will do is take the centerpiece, install the microphone cable, and attach this piece to the centerpiece. I don't know if this comes through. We have a red clip here, so we need to attach that first to the centerpiece itself. As you remember, the piece that had the vent had the female side of it, so we'll push that in place, and then we will start the assembly of, or reassembly of, the center console pieces. Once we have attached the cable, we will attach this piece here then to this piece, and we'll need to make sure that we'll hit the slots that we have on the dash itself when we are installing the trim pieces, so we don't force anything into place. But we'll be going in something like this, but of course now this cannot be on this side, it needs to be from the back side. So we'll start with that and see if we can manage this in a good way. Now I think we got that. Like so. Before we push anything into place, we just want to make sure that everything looks aligned. It took a little bit of wiggling, as you saw. We have 1 clip that goes in from the centerpiece into the dash or the console of the car. That was the one that was causing us not to be able to push this into place. So I forced this down a little bit and then pushed forward, and everything went in, as you saw. So we will now start with pushing everything so everything sits properly. I think most of it already snapped back into place, and when we were removing it, it wasn't sitting that hard from the beginning, so I think everything should be back in one piece now. That was all with regards to the actual installation and removal and reassembly then. So all in all, I don't know what it took, 30 minutes maybe tops, and that's with the recording. We just need to make sure that this also is fastened securely. Now we are good to go. This looks fantastic. I have to say, this is a piece that you have your eye on most of the time while driving, at least when you're driving a little bit more spirited. And together with the racing shift knob in Alcantara, and once we get the steering wheel, which is in Alcantara, in place, the cabin will be a really nice place to be in, at least from a driver's perspective. That was all for today's video. I hope it has given you some input on how to do this if you want to do it by yourself. It was a very simple job to do. I don't know why I haven't done it before, but let's leave it at that. It took 35-40 minutes, I don't know, whatever, and that is with the filming, so it is a really quick installation, but it costs a little bit of money, of course, to get the dial and so on. And also I got this from IL Motorsports in Germany, and as I mentioned earlier, then Craven Speed have a similar type of dial as well, and they have a red one and so on. But I think the installation process is more or less the same, irrespective of which one of them you choose then. And also with regards to the color matching, etc., I have a video of me unboxing the dial itself. It is not 100% matching, but as it is a piece by itself and we don't have the car's colors just next to it, it is nothing that I will be thinking of or anybody else. But if you start looking for it, you will see that the color difference is there. And also this is a matte finish and it's not a gloss finish as we have on the rest of the car. So if you have any questions at all with regards to the dial or the installation, the car in general, other modifications or anything else, just hit me up in the comment sections below. It is always interesting to see your comments and try to be interactive with you. So with that said, if you liked today's video and if it was informational, give it a big thumbs up. Do remember to subscribe for future content. With that said, I'll be seeing you on the next one.